All right, so today we're going to look at the properties toolbox within the Connected Components Workbench software. Now, when you're looking at the main workspace of the Connected Components Workbench, you have your project organizer and you have your ladder logic workspace. And there's a couple of features that you have, whether you want to have, say, the organizer pinned or floating, etc. One of the problems that I find with the software is that the workspace either doesn't show enough or it shows too much. And it took a while to understand how the interface can be changed so that you can customize it to your liking. So the colors, for example, sometimes you'll see I've got my text different colors. We're going to cover that shortly. But from the list of it, you can right click and you're not even sure what you're looking at. So we're going to look at what's called the Properties dialog box. Now, right clicking on the Properties dialog box is going to open up the Properties dialog. Well, it's more of a menu on the side, but depends on where you click it. So I'm going to leave that for a second, and I'm going to go over here where it says Properties, and I'm going to pin it in place, and it will take up some viewing screen. You noticed my ladder has shrunk. If I needed more room, I could rob some space from the project organizer, or I could just leave it at the default setting. When you're working with it, you'll get these drop downs to change some of the settings, and it can be very frustrating because when you look at it, there's really not a whole lot that you're given. It's got background comment, display true, display label false, label, I'm not even sure what I'm looking at. That's because I randomly I just opened it up and it didn't have anything specific. So I'm going to take and start off with a demonstration. Like right now we have, it's giving me the choice. I can change a power rail color. Right now it's silver. So I'm going to try changing that. And the power rails, of course, are on the left and right hand side. And one thing that you will find is that depending on some of the selections, you might have to restart the program. So I'm going to take something innocuous. We'll go with steel blue, and you notice it changed it on the one rung but not on all of them. If I want to do it on all of them, I have to hit shift, and it may not let me do it. Okay, power rail color, and you can see steel blue. Let's change it all. Sometimes you'll find it won't let you do that. It's very particular. Okay, you'll notice that we have some of our labels truncated. I can't read what that says. I can read the IO, but I can't read what the alias is. So to change that, you can change parts of it, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. You have to kind of fool the software, because you'll see that I've had it and it's doing nothing for me. When I have it in a blank one and I right click, it doesn't seem to want to do anything. And half of the problem you're going to find working with this is to figure out where you have to be relative to this properties drop down menu. Sometimes it's really easy to find, and then sometimes you're clicking for half an hour trying to figure out why isn't it doing what I want it to do. So let's try another way. I'm going to go down this corner here, and all of a sudden this has popped up. So to make life easy, if you want to work on a individual contact but it's not giving you what you want to edit on it, put a branch around it, then click on the corner. Any one of the corners will do, and you'll get this LD container. So that's our ladder diagram container, and this is setting up some of the ways we can view things. So right now The one I want to look at and start with is the cell height and cell width. So this square hash box is considered to be a cell, and I can increase the height. Now if you are working with a lot of text in your comment, you'll probably want to increase this. I'm not going to get too liberal with it. I'm going to just go 5. There we go. And you'll see it's giving me a little bit more of the commentary, and these up and down space between the rails is now a little larger. I still can't see that alias. So to change that, we want to go to the cell width, and I'm going to make that 50. And now it's widened it. The good news is I can read that. The bad news is, I'm going to unpin this for a moment. You can see it's starting to do funny things with the logic. It's breaking our our right rail. Our timers now are enormous boxes. Everything is taking up a lot of space. Every time you make a change, it's going to dramatically affect the entire viewing of it. Now if for some reason, some people will close these and then you can't find it. I'm just going to close that, and you'll notice it's now disappeared, and you're going, oh no, I want to change it back and I can't because I can't find it. Two ways to solve that. You can start off by trying to reset the Windows layout, and you simply go up to the window menu, drop down where it says reset window layout. It's going to beep and say, do you want to restore it? You go yes. And now you can see the properties have been restored on our right hand side. I'm going to do that again because the other way you can do that, I believe it's under View, Project Organizer, .min, Properties window, F4. So I'm going to press F4. Keyboard sticking, and again it comes back. If you're going to be doing a lot of changes until you get happy with the way it looks, I would suggest you use the pin. It's going to lock it. It's going to take some space, but you'll be able to find what you want. So I'm going to go back to our corner here, and notice the top one did nothing, bottom one did something for me. And I'm going to put this back to our 30. You can turn off the background grid by making that false. You'll get a drop down, so it's a little cleaner looking. Element height. Let's just see what happens when I change that. Right now it's 2. I'm going to make it 10. 210 is probably excessive. And wow. I think that's probably more than I need. Lots of room for commentary. Unfortunately, you can't, like for a header rung where you might have a lot of description, it does not give you a lot of leeway. You can't specify only a single one. So that's back to 5, which is still kind of large. 1 is too small. And that's probably close to the Goldilocks size that we want. Let's take a look at our element width. So now I can see I've just increased that by 5 without changing the cell, and now I can actually see that one. So that actually worked out fairly well. If I don't like the font that's being used, right now you can see the slashes and the zeros separated from a large or uppercase O. You can change the default little ellipse button, and if you want, I guess, something fancy, you can do that, or you can just say I want something very, very plain. And start also typing it. And you can set the font size with Arial. It's fairly large. I'm going to leave it at 9. And you can see now it hasn't changed the text on the text editor. That's a separate function. But on the actual instruction itself, it's now using that Arial narrow font. Go back. I don't want narrow. I just want regular. And now we're on consistently the same size at 9 point. Rung line thickness, that's actually a good size at 3. Then we have our rung settings. So coil alignment false. What that means is, you notice before the rail broke and the output was sent off to the right. If I want that to always be aligned, I can make it true, in which case these should be perpendicular at all times. Background comment is mine is white. Comment color is green. Not a big fan. So let's just make that black. Didn't change this again because this is a different editor. True, display label false, fit to window. Now if you can't quite read it, you can expand that. Fit to window width true. That should adjust everything so it's always visible. Label color, silver power rail. Right now we've changed that. Variable settings. So you can see there's quite a bit of things you can actually change. One thing that you can't change, a lot of the stuff, once you can only change it while you're offline. You can't change it while you're online looking at something. With block instructions, I like to keep them old school, just black and white, but you can, and there are those who prefer to do this. Now, it would be great if you could do this with a particular subject in mind, so that right now that's kind of got a reddy orange and it's got a gradient color, and I can make the background gradient a different color, and you can see you can make it look a little closer to 3D. I am not a big fan of coloring because especially middle-aged eyes like mine, it gets harder and harder to discern what they're trying to say. So I like to just keep them black and white. A lot of people will change them, and if I could see this being a really fantastic feature, if you could select this right now as a TON instruction. If I could say that for every time I do a timer, give me a separate color, that would be fantastic, because it would allow me to scroll really fast, and when I see something like a TOF that's a particular shade of blue, it would just pop out at the screen and I don't have to even search. I know it's an off delay timer, zip, there it is. But it doesn't do that. It's on a ad hoc, case by case basis, and it takes a lot of time to change these. And I've had it happen where I've trying to understand what they're saying, and they've used dark colors, and I've had to go back and literally change it all so I could actually see it. And it was a good hour and a half of it wasn't even a huge program, but it was an hour and a half of my life where I can't get back. It's like, okay, I really wish they didn't do that. But it does have, for some people, they prefer to use it, and that's entirely up to the programmer. Okay, so that's how you change some of the workspace. There is some other things that you can do when working on the workspace. If you need to see more of it, make sure you go up to View, go to Toolbars, and make sure Zoom is set on. When it is, you'll get these plus and minus magnifying glasses. And you could probably do an eye chart test with that from across the room. You can also zoom out, so if you have a large complicated run, you'll start losing details, but on smaller programs you can get it to the point where you can see most of the logic. And if I were then to unpin that, so now it's back there waiting for me whenever I require it, but I can see more of the program. Can't tell you what it's doing, but I can zoom in and zoom out. So that's working with the properties as far as just the basics within the ladder diagram program page. Alright, if you're working with connective components workbenches, there's a couple of variations of a theme between versions 21 and versions 22. I should clarify that not really a theme. Themes are actually the way the project organizer is laid out, which we'll get to shortly. But when you are working with a program and you're online, the colors can be difficult to see, especially if it has that yellow background and it's a green color. So I'm just going to liven this up with my simulator for a demonstration. Version 21, the default color for an active power rail is red, which stands out against the background color. The default color for version 22, however, is green. Now I get it, green is go, red is normally considered bad and stop, but the red also means that stop because there's energy there. So it's a personal preference. The default colors that I've traditionally worked with has been red for power on and blue for power off. So we're going to take a look at how to change these so that if you're having difficulty seeing the colors, you can make alterations to your program. So I've got the program turned off. Notice I've got on mine, just to clarify, I've got an inactive rung color of gray, and the last time I changed it, the power rail I changed to a blue color, so I can change that again if I want. So let's just try for an experiment. Right click on that, properties, and yep, I can actually make some changes online. It's kind of hit or miss. I've tried it for other things and I've gotten absolutely nowhere. And you can see I can't type or change it. It just makes it look like I can. Okay. Learning has occurred. Alright, so I've also got red. I've got the top rung that's supposed to have a NOP instruction, and that's missing, but it's got power applied to it. And you can see the power is applied. So how did I get it to be red if it's green or a different color? How did I change that to gray? Well, the truth is, you can't use, if I go offline here for a moment, and again, call up our properties box, if I highlight the rung, it won't let me change the color. It's annoying, to say the least. I've tried jumping in different spots. I couldn't find it anywhere to change the color of the while online, and I've really found the green to be frustrating. So one day I discovered that there's a different place to go looking for it, and what you've got to do is you've got to go into your tools and you've got to go into your options, and on the options you've got quite a bit of like environment, etc., import, export settings, where do you want to save your files, but I want you to go to application, and then we have projects, and then we have IEC languages. Now if you go to applications, you think this is where it would make sense. Well, it has other things, but again, it doesn't do the master changing of the way the program is going to look. So you've got to go to the IEC because there are 3 different ways that you can program. You can use function block diagram, ladder diagram, and structured text. And each of them have definitive global settings. So we're going to go to ladder diagram, and this is all the things that are the default settings for any of your instructions, etc. The same things we did in the properties, but these are global. Most of them we've already seen. There's my cell height, cell width. And I've turned the grid off, that's fine. My font I selected was Consolis because I like that slash. Okay, good. Now we're going to go a little further for comments. Again, I want that to be Consolis, 12 point. Excellent. And then we get to power flow false color and power flow true color. So I've selected slate gray as that inactive color, and I was able to change the green. Let me just go back here. So the green they chose, if memory serves me, was a lime green, and against that yellow background, yeah, it's hard to see. The red jumps out at you. So this is where you're going to change it in this options dialog box under our IEC languages. You can then do the power rail if you want, change it to a different color. The no power flowing is slate gray, and the power rail color itself is silver. And you can also change things like the text color online to red. That's the matching the power rail. So if you want, you can change that to a different color. If you like blue, for example, or whatever, then you can do that. Once you've done that, you're going to press OK. Now, one of the problems with this is if you do it, you then have to restart the program. I don't know, because I guess it's global that they want you to restart it all, because if you do it on the fly like I just did now, you'll find that the color doesn't change, and that will make it very frustrating because you know that's what's supposed to happen. So what I found to make that happen, you have to shut the program off and then start the program up again, and you'll get your different power rail colors. Alright, with the screen itself on some of the different rungs, etc., there are some people say, "Well, where'd that go?" For example, right now I have all my instructions shown. If I hit this arrow here, they'll disappear to give me more viewing room. If this particular format doesn't tickle your fancy, you can actually change the theme. Now, Allen Bradley makes more than the MicroLogix family. They make control logics. They used to make what they call PLC5. They've made a whole number of different sizes of processors. There's also one called a SLIC or an SLC 500 series. And each of them, most of them worked in the same or very similar software. I shouldn't say the same because the PLC5 and the SLIC were a little bit different, but they were similar in the construct. When they went to control logics, they changed the way they did the structure. This particular structure using connected components Workbench is very similar to the control logics, kind of married to the PLC5 SLIC method. And I'm going to show you how you change that. Up the top here, there's a little box that says theme. Now, if you don't see it, don't panic. You simply have to go to View, go down to Toolbars, and make sure that, for example, the Build one was not shown. You can also go down to Customize and basically fill the entire top up with stuff that you'll may or may not ever use. And once you've done that, you can see I'm taking up space. All of these are new different menus you can work with. If you don't use them, I recommend that you don't put them up there, because you'll simply have to go and hunt and find for stuff that you're not really going to use anyway. The run mode change does not work on the free version. You have to buy the developer model version to get that to work, and that just basically allows you to do edits online on the fly, as it were. Okay, the one that if you don't see is the theme, and it gives you only two choices. It gives you the default, which is what we're looking at, or it gives us this one that looks what they call logics, which is the control logics variation. And you'll notice that suddenly it has changed. And I'm not going to dwell too long on it, but basically with control logics, instead of calling it a project, they call it a main task that has programs or subroutines running behind it. And each of them, you'll have your same ladder logic. That hasn't changed. It's just the presentation's a little bit different. The other thing that is different on these is you'll notice that there's no variable collections. They have collector variables, but they don't have program variables. So you can add new structure, text, and ladder diagrams, but it's not showing you each of these individual local variables. So for working with Connected Components Workbench, you're likely to want to stay with the default. And when you're working with it, if someone has gone to the last person using it has selected the logics, that's how you change it. It's just a different way of expressing the same information, but you don't get to see the local variable collections per se. I'm sure they've got to be in there somewhere. Let's just take a quick minute here while we can. And pick one of these and go. All those are going to be global anyway. Let me see if I can find timer, because timers are usually, okay, this one here, variable selector, and there they have the ton program is listed here, but you don't have access to it on the controller organizer. So you can still access them, but it's just a backdoor. You have to know where to find it. So we're going to go back to our default. So that's how you can change the theme. If someone has left the old one for you, not familiar with what's going on, don't panic. If you can't see this menu called theme, then you know how to find it. Go to View, Toolbars, and select it.